Hello and welcome to another episode of Data Lounge, where we try to take a little bit of a more relaxed look at data. Welcome to our second part of our conversation with Davide and Mauri from the Microsoft Product Group for Azure SQL Hyperscale. So we hope you enjoy the second part. There are some very interesting things that you will hear about only here. So stay tuned and thank you very much for joining us. Let's dive in. Let's continue that conversation.
And you don't want that to happen if you are in production and maybe, I don't know, you are serving a worldwide used application or even just a local one, but that people needs to access it in order to do their job. So you just create a secondary read-only node, and all the reporting needs, all the analysts, all the data science can just go there. Now, with this is great for this kind of scenario where you want to separate analytical load from more OLTP workload. Now, what happens if instead you need to serve a massive amount of client, like phones, that mainly they want to read. Yeah, they want to write sometimes, but they mainly want to see the status of their order or whatever. So you probably need more than one read replicas because you will be hitting very hard the database with a lot of concurrent transaction. So with Hyperscale today, you can go up to 4 read replicas for a total of 5. So 1 will be the primary and all the other 4 will be secondary replicas that we will be basically serving exactly the same data of the primary, but they are just another server. So you are using more or different resources. They cannot basically step on each other tools. So this allows you to really scale out very quickly, and creating a new replica it's very, very easy. You just create a new one, and after a few seconds, you have a new connection string, and that's it, or a new endpoint, and that's it.
One question here, yeah. Davide, is, and this is a fantastic explanation. Definitely, yes, you're absolutely right. We've seen those scenarios where someone's writing the query, probably they're not using or they're not familiar with snapshot replication or recommitted to snapshot isolation. They just send a fantastic select star from table. There you go, all fully locked, while someone is just trying to insert a row, right? Yeah. So, but what you're saying here is that when we're creating these replicas, when we're talking about Azure SQL Hyperscale, what we're doing is actually provisioning, quote, or not quote, but provisioning more compute power, but connecting that compute power actually to the same storage. Storage layer. You are not replicating the storage in another region.
No, that's the trick. So since everything is a distributed service, we don't have any problem accessing or asking to the same page server, hey, I'm another compute node, just give me, this data page. And that's it. Basically, just imagine like a page server, like a server that exactly does that, serve pages. And so whoever has the authority and the right to ask for data page, can get one. So creating a replica is very, very easy. We just spin up the secondary node, make sure that he has the correct credential to connect to the page server, but this is something we do internally, and that's it. That's it.
It's very straightforward.
It's super fast. So not only you can scale up very quickly, but let's say at some point we had a customer that at some point say, okay, we reached the 80 vCore and still we need more power. So by adding more read-only replicas, you can today go up to 320 vCores just serving data for your database, which is pretty impressive, I would say.
It's a lot of power. I want to see that task manager.
Yes, it's a lot of power, and that happens like that. And when you don't need it, you drop the replicas, and that's it. So,
Davide, but what happens in this case? And obviously, we in Europe are probably, if you're seeing us from other countries, not necessarily so, but at least in Europe, you're quite aware of the GDPR world and the data residency requirements, right? So in this case, the data stays where it is. But one of the things that I've had the chance to hear from some clients is, hey, what happens if I need to have an actual geo replica, right? And this is something that Hyperscale cannot do right now that we are aware of. Any plans on that?
No, yeah. We are working on geo-replicas. There's a lot of work on that side because we heard customers saying, hey, I want to replicate my data where I want. So yeah, we are working on that. Hopefully, not too much time, we'll be able to announce publicly that geo-replica is available. But that's something we are working on at the moment. Yeah, there are some technical issues we have to figure out how to solve, as you can imagine. But because, again, it's not that we are reusing anything of the previous architecture. This is not Hadron. This is not always on. So everything is basically totally, completely new. So it takes a little bit of time to, let's say, bake, because we may also have, let's say that we already have GeoDR ready. We really want to test it and make sure that even with 100 terabytes data, we can sustain, the workload that the customer expects us to sustain. So it's a little bit longer than we expected, I want to be honest, but it's coming. Yeah.
So you heard it first here in Data Lounge. Obviously, as with any Microsoft statement, please, this is not any kind of formal commitment. So don't go
absolutely.
around saying you heard David saying they're going to have
plus,
this.
as you saw, now I'm getting very good at being a PM. I haven't said any date at all.
Exactly. So,
I just said it will come as soon as possible. But we just want to make sure that
we're working on it, so we've all heard that on both sides of the table. But you heard it here, so you heard it here for the first time. They're actually thinking of your replica.
Absolutely.
So you know, if you're watching this, you know who you are, why I'm asking this question, and why it was important. But another thing I think it's interesting, and I'll let you continue, is that a lot of people really not necessarily have the full awareness that you guys are actually using the same Azure storage that we use, right? You're using global storage. You're delivering also the out of the box capability of the local redundancy, et cetera, the three copies of data. You're actually using the same thing that our clients can use, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main point of Hyperscale was to create something that didn't require any specific, let's say, hardware or Azure resources, because we want to actually already Azure Hyperscale is deployable. It's deployed, I guess, in 99% of the available regions, including the government one. So we really wanted to have something that is just using, let's say, standard resources, not anything special, so that we can make it available, as fast as possible in all the region. And today, I think last month we added a couple of regions, but today I think it covers probably 90% for sure of the whole region. There are just a few that we are, waiting to deploy, but I would say, it's basically available everywhere. And we are using Azure Blob Storage, nothing more and nothing less. This also helps us to have a decent costs. So, have a service that is not only super good for customer, but also it's good for us, because otherwise it would have been probably too expensive if you have to create something new just for one service, right? And plus with that, we can also take advantage of all the improvement that Azure Storage, came up with. So that's it. We are just using regular Azure Blob Storage. We try not to use it too much because, as you know, database can easily kill any storage system, even the best one, right? That's why we created this multi-layered, multi-tiered cache architecture to make sure not only that the performance are great, but also that we don't hit too hard with the storage, because we know that storage has a limit like anything else, right? So we just want to make sure that we use it only when it's really needed. As usual, I would say this is not very different than on premises, right? Yeah.
Good, brilliant. Go ahead. I'm interrupting Davide, Mauri, and you, those of you that have followed us, you know that I try not to interrupt our speakers so much, but hey, we have someone from Pro Group here. We can hit them hard, right? So go ahead, Davide, go ahead.
No, I was just taking a look at because we just updated this. I think it was updated like some days, some month ago. Okay. Because this was pretty new. You see, in my original screenshot was different. We made it a little bit more clear. But other than that, I would say Let's see if there is anything. Availability, we covered it. Restoring, yeah, geo-restore, of course, is possible also. Oh, yeah, these are all the regions which are basically everything. And plus, if anyone needs to have hyperscale enabled in a region that is not listed, you can just ask us. So that's another important thing, because there are some customers that really needs a specific region for the sovereignty issues that you just mentioned. So that's probably very possible. And yeah, that's let's say that's a, I would say, good enough overview of hyperscale, just to make sure that all the listener here have a understanding of what hyperscale is. That is not just for the hyper kind of needs, but is like more for everywhere, everyday needs. It's hyperscale in the sense that can grow and can give you the peace of mind. We had several customers, even a couple of startups that started saying, we just want to use hyperscale because I don't want to find myself in the place where at some point I need to migrate to something different. I just want to make sure that and this is I think it's the key point. I just want to make sure that I can, let's say, forget about database in the good sense, in the sense that I know database will support me no matter what I will be doing. And
actually,
so,
and this element that you're mentioning right now is very interesting for those of our viewers that probably you haven't played a lot with this. There is a very interesting element, and when I'm delivering trainings or I'm talking to clients and making demos of this, one of the things that I like to show is, look, if you're provisioning a regular Azure SQL database, right? It's automatically asking you how much data you're going to have. Right?
Yeah.
You have a slider at the bottom of the screen that says, hey, you're going to have up to 4 terabytes, which is the current limit there. But when you're provisioning hyperscale, nowhere it's asking you how much data you're going to have.
Yeah.
It's simply telling
Yes.
you, just put, you can have, if you want to start with 10 gigabytes and you only have 10 gigabytes or 5 gigabytes, go for it. If you want to go with 1 terabyte, go for it. It's not the concept that we need to necessarily be concerned about. Obviously, we have to think that you have to design the database properly, right? Good design will never go out of fashion, but it's there. You don't even think about it in hyperscale.
No, yeah, that's right. So how it works is that basically when you create your first database, hyperscale database, sorry, any hyperscale database actually, we start to allocate some page servers for you. So each page server can deal with up to 128 gigabytes, but we start to create up to 4 actually. Today is exactly 4 page server, so you can also spread the I/O across different nodes, and for that page server, even if they can manage 128 gigabytes, today you will be only you will only allocate 10 gigabytes for you. So the first time you start an empty hyperscale database, you will see that it will start with 10 gigabytes and will grow up to 40 gigabytes, and then it will stop, because we noticed that that's on average the best distribution of I/O and number of page server to give the performance the majority needs. Then, of course, the more your database will grow, you will go and exhaust the 128 gigabytes on the 4-page server, and then we start to add page server, trying to always have a very even distribution of data, again, to avoid to have, because it's true that we are just doing a network I/O, which is usually pretty fast, but then at some point we'll probably saturate also that bandwidth. So we want to make sure that also that doesn't happen, and so that's why we start with immediately 4-page server, and then we start add more when it's needed. So yeah, and this has changed during time, because we are learning. We have a huge amount of metrics that comes out of Azure SQL and Hyperscale that allows us to understand where we can improve the service. And so at the beginning, we had 1 terabyte database page servers. Then we noticed that it's better to have lower than that and spread the data across more than page servers. And now we are learning even more. So for sure, improvement will come out in the next years. So that's why we also the challenge they also keep all the documentation updated, because it's changing pretty quickly, even for us, I tell you. But yeah, that's true. But that's a good sign, because literally we have a huge team of engineers every day working on making things better, and we release every month. So there are chances that every month we have to change something because it has been improved, right? So the good side of that is the customer have improvement without even maybe noticing it. The bad side of that is that keeping the documentation updated is sometimes a challenge. Right? But yeah, I would say for now I take the better performance, and we deal with
the
documentation.
documentation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
but one of the things that I particularly happen to consider a lot, and when we're talking to clients, is obviously in the cloud we all know that resources can be shared, right? So one question that I have around this specific architecture is those page servers. Those page servers are for one database only, and obviously one client only, or in that physical machine where you're sharing with other clients. So because you could have the problem of the noisy neighbor, right?
Yes, correct. So today, exactly to avoid any problem, each page server will only serve one database. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So of course we are trying to understand how to, because we have a lot now that a lot of customers are starting to use Hyperscale. We also have a database, let's say, relatively small, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of a waste to have a page server half used. So we are trying to figure out how to basically reuse that space. But as you said, the challenge is making sure that noisy neighbor doesn't basically reflect on other customers, right? So we are honestly, there is nothing I can share at the moment. We are actively working on that a lot. It's not an easy problem to tackle, and we want to make sure that whatever algorithm we come up with will be something that the customer won't even notice, meaning that they will basically see the database like they completely own the page server, even if we decide at some point to split this behind the scene.
But for now, for those viewers that might be a little bit concerned of, I've had these problems in other Azure products. You can be sure for now. Again, this can always change based on what Microsoft learns about the product, the usage, etc. But for now, here is the answer. Okay, you have each page server belongs to you and only you, and that obviously will give a lot of certainty, particularly for those clients that have larger needs. So that is the answer.
Yeah. Today, yes. Yeah, because that's a very difficult problem to solve. Yeah. It's really not easy. Keep in mind, that's it. But yeah, we are absolutely working on that, because that's of course something we need to figure out at some point. So hopefully sooner than later we can share something with you. Yep.
Excellent. What's coming? What are you guys working on? Because obviously Hyperscale is so big, right? And you have a very close relationship with the Box product team, and you're sharing components at the end of the day, right? So what are those things that you can share without getting in any trouble with legal and corporate?
I'm thinking. No, not only that. In 4 days there will be Ignite, right? So there will be some announcement there. So I need to be sure not to make an announcement before the date. So what I can for sure tell is that we are trying to remove all the known limitation, right? So that especially, this is something we know the customer wants, so in-memory object, but everything that is listed here is something we are working on, everything, because we want to make sure that Hyperscale at some point is just let's say, regular database in terms of perception. So you have everything you expect from Azure SQL or SQL Server, just without any limitation. So the main focus today is making sure that all the limitation that we know today we have will be gone as soon as possible. Other than that, there is no specific feature that we are working on for Hyperscale, because the idea is that from edge to cloud, we want you to have exactly the same experience. But that's a key point, because allows a company to literally reuse the same knowledge someone has gained working on premises on the edge or on the cloud. And that's a huge value, because honestly, today I see a lot of very interesting database, SQL and NoSQL. The main problem today for me is that if I were working for a company, is that I don't want my technology to be too fragmented, because it becomes extremely dangerous. It's become extremely difficult to maintain. But not only that, I've been there before joining Microsoft. The more technology you have, the more difficult it is to maintain, in the sense that at some point, unless you are Facebook and you have a huge amount of people that, you have 3 or 4 engineers for everything, at some point you have someone that become really good at something. And that become a kind of a bottleneck, or anyway potentially an issue. So imagine that you have 5 different technologies. You decide to use a NoSQL for the cloud, and then another specific database for time series, and then another one for edge, and then this and that. Very easily, you came up with 5 different technologies. First of all, you have to figure out how to make them work together, which is already a huge challenge alone. But then maintaining them means team or person dedicated to learning how to use them properly, because otherwise it's a waste. And that's for me, even again before joining Microsoft, when I was with SolidQ or even with Censored before joining Microsoft. The main point is, how can I make my solution simpler? Because simpler mean I can spare money and time and resources.
Correct. And also because this is a conversation that I also when in the industry there is a lot of as well with the cloud of this fear of, I'm gonna lose my job because now the cloud does everything for me, and the skills I have today are not usable anymore. And this is one of the elements that I like personally to highlight, is to say, hey, hold on, the cloud is not something to be afraid of. It doesn't mean that all the things you knew all of a sudden are obsolete and they're not important anymore.
No, absolutely.
And Microsoft is fully aware of this. And this is this is the commitment that Microsoft has made.
Absolutely.
Historically, it's not to not let you down on the technology side.
One, and that's for sure. But also, I would say that what we are trying to do with the cloud is not, taking job away from people. That is not going to happen anytime soon. What we are trying to do is taking what can be automated out of the hands of people, because honestly, I mean, it's just like something that you have to do every day, like again, backup and restore or something like that. If you don't have to do it anymore, you can focus on something with more added value. That's the point. So the idea of the cloud, at least for me, and in my work I do as a PM, is not to say, oh man, we can, automate this and great, you don't have to pay these people anymore. No, it's more like, we can automate this so they can actually use the human brain, which is the real marvel here, to do something that a computer cannot do, like find a new way to use your data, find a new way to, reduce, costs, something like that. But that's the main point. And hyperscale just fits perfectly into this scenario. As today, I think it's very important for an architect to understand what are the options and how he can simplify his solution as much as possible. Because again, I really try to follow the, keep it super simple principle, because I saw it works amazingly well, especially in the long term. When people come and go and someone new hired have to maintain code that is 10 years old, the simpler the better, right? And hyperscale goes in that direction, because if you don't have very specific need, it can really help you to create any solution. Like it has support for geospatial data, for example. So you don't have to, go and find another library and figure out how to integrate it with your solution. It has support for, again, this in-memory table. In hyperscale, it will be coming soon. So you can actually don't have a lock, and you can basically create a cache if you want. Of course, you can use a Redis if you want, but that will be another solution you have to integrate. Maybe it's the best for you, maybe not. If not, it's not that you don't have any choice. It's all about having choices, right? With us, graph, we support graph in database. Again, maybe you say, oh, I prefer to use Gremlin for this and that. Perfect. But it's not that you have to. You can choose. And maybe Azure SQL in 80% of the case will be more than enough for you. Maybe not. In that case, I mean, go and find the best technology you can. I'm super happy. But we just want to, customer and developer especially, to have option that doesn't require them to move data around, because that's for me, the challenge in the next year will be integration. The more you spread data around, the more it's difficult to integrate, keep it consistent, and keep it kind of valid. It's not a case that we started to discuss several years ago about, MDM solution, master data management. Because the moment you spread data around, then you start to figure out, what is the golden data here? Yeah, good point. And then, then happens that, I don't know, for example, I receive offer for my mobile provider, but I'm already their customer. Man, why are you calling me? I'm already your customer.
And the presence of the data, and definitely these challenges of, hey, with more data and with data volumes growing, right? I mean, only 5 years ago, thinking about 50, 60 terabytes, was not something necessarily extremely common in the industry, right?
No.
So it's great to have a tool and to have a service, again, coming back to that concept, to have a service that reuses the knowledge we have, reduces the knowledge you might have learned either at uni or by yourself, in the on-premises world, either with SQL Express or whatever flavor of the SQL Server offering overall that you have worked with. And now leverage that with the extra power of knowing that you have a lot of engineers on Microsoft, people like Davide and all, of course, a way gigantic team within Microsoft, but helping you leverage that up to the new and to be able to cover and deliver based on the new needs of data and the new reality of data. And I think that's absolutely fantastic with Hyperscale.
Totally agree. And that's why I decided to join the team. It's amazing. I mean, again, Hyperscale, when I saw the architecture, I was like, man, that's impressive. I mean, I don't know if people watching this video as an idea, but just imagine completely dismantling a service like SQL Server and rebuilding it together as a set of distributed services is no challenge. It's really it's no joke. It's really a challenge. So I mean, I'm very proud. Of course, I'm biased here, but that's not something you see every day, man. It's much easier. It would have been much easier to say, okay, let's rebuild everything from scratch. That would have been much easier, I tell you.
Yes. And again, with a service and a product that is such a flagship product overall on the data landscape for Microsoft, right? It was over the last 30 years. When you were to talk about data in the Microsoft world, the answer is SQL Server, right? And SQL Server mainly on the relational engine. Of course, we're not leaving aside the other very interesting and powerful components like analysis services, or integration services, or reporting services, et cetera. But the relational engine was the core tenet around which all of those things grew out of, right? So it was absolutely, it's an absolute challenge. So Davide, thank you very much for having joined us.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to break this into 2 different episodes.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's been quite a long, but
we're actually 2 episodes. For those of you watching, we covered a lot of things in this conversation, right? This was not definitely your out of the box, your traditional data lounge with one specific topic, but we get the chance to see some of the what's the behind, what's the thinking behind, because this happens a lot, right? That you and I, we can be sitting and looking at the product and say, what was Microsoft thinking? What was in their tiny heads, right? And this is that opportunity with the SQL Hyperscale. So obviously, please, any questions you might have, any thoughts, any doubts, if you want us to have another episode talking something more specifically or in a specific area that you say, hey, you know what, we would like to hear about with Davide about this specific side of Hyperscale, of the relational engine, just let us know. Don't forget to subscribe at the bottom. I think you have, probably you should have already, our Twitter aliases, so if you want to follow us, and probably there you will be able to harass openly, Davide. Davide, thank you very much for joining us. It's absolutely great to see you again, man. And this conversation is absolutely fantastic.
Same here. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. To everyone, thank you very much, and see you in our next episode. Thank you, everyone. Bye.